involved with the video game track here at DragonCon, and Kevin asked me to moderate this panel, but I'm not sure that these ladies need a whole lot of direction. They're pretty much on top of things. So why don't we start off introducing yourselves and say a little bit about what you're doing in the games industry right now. Let's start with you, Seraphina.
Would you mind if I move the trophy? I think I can move the trophy. My team won it 1 year, so I have the rights, I think. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
How's everyone doing today? Hi, guys. My name is Seraphina Brown. Some people in this room might know me better online as Cellestrata Bloodsong. I am the Senior Community Manager at Trial Worlds on a game called Arcage, but you might also know me from my work in the past on Massively.com, a video game site dedicated to massively multiplayer games, as well as my time at Warner Bros. Games, where I worked on The Lord of the Rings Online, Batman Arkham City, and also the Fear franchise. So, nice to meet you all.
Hi guys, this is on.
Bring it really close. You have to get really close.
Yeah, some of them are a little hotter than others.
Now?
Further. More.
More.
Okay. In your teeth.
It doesn't. So we have to kind of hover over it. So, my name is Levy. I am a research scientist at Georgia Tech, and I work on games. We do a lot of scientifically validated types of games. We design games that do purpose things, like help people, whether it's cognitive rehabilitation or physical rehabilitation, helping people make healthy choices. We also do a lot of entertainment games too with augmented reality, but it's more on the academic side. That's me.
Testing. Oh, nope. Testing. Okay. Hi, my name is Savannah Teams. Currently, I'm working as a Smite community manager just up the road at Hyro Studios.
Yeah.
Yay! I actually started at Southern Polytech, and my degree is in I just graduated, so major in computer game design and development, background in programming, minor in computer science. Being local, I just networked my way into SWC first year. I met people, and I actually started at the company as a receptionist, and then I was like, plot twist, I'm actually a game designer. That's how I got where I am now. So I'll pass this along to our community producer.
Hi, I'm Amanda Erickson. I work also at Hyro Studios with Savannah on Smite. I'm the community producer, and yeah, I've been doing that for almost 2 years now.
Woo!
Hi everyone. Does this work? Okay, there we go. I have to get really close. My name is Alison Carrier. I'm a UI UX designer, and I work at Electronic Arts Mobile Division. It's called Red Crow. I've been working for Red Crow about 2 years. Prior to that, I've been with EA's Mobile Division another 3.5. Currently working on an unannounced title, but before that, I was working on The Simpsons Tapped Out.
Hi, my name is Lauren Brown. I also work with Alison as a lead environment artist at EA Red Crow. And before that, I was a background artist and a lead background artist at Floyd County Productions, working on various animated series such as Archer, Chosen Unsupervised, and The League. So I'm actually pretty new to the game industry, and been working there for about 7 months now.
Thanks, ladies. And I actually have a little bit of involvement with the game industry too. I was the founding editor of The Escapist, and I was the editor-in-chief for the first 5 years that we were running. So. And I think it would be kind of interesting to learn a little bit about you guys too. So I'm going to ask for a show of hands for a couple of questions. How many of you are involved in the game industry yourselves?
Oh, wow.
Okay, cool. And how many of you are aspirational, looking forward to getting into the industry? Okay.
There's only that little.
Yeah, I know. And so the rest of you are just looking for a comfy place to sit. Or you just feel like, girl.
We're consumers!
Yeah!
All of the above. All right, welcome. Let's hear a little bit about how you guys got into where you are, your positions in the industry.
My path was pretty screwed up. I think a lot of people can say that they got in kind of accidentally. I was actually at the University of Pittsburgh working as a psychological researcher. I was actually looking at group decision-making within social spaces and virtual spaces. So I was very close. I almost did what you kind of do, but I never got that far. And it kind of like ended. Unfortunately, the recession kind of crushed my hopes and dreams. Yeah, which is probably for the better, actually. I'm much happier now. I tried to get into the psychological industry, couldn't. Ended up writing for a small site that was a wing of the Joystick Network, massively.com, as a lowly writer. Went up to being a awesome columnist and writer, then got demoted due to money issues, back down to writer, and then back up the ladder to senior editor. After that, I moved into Turbine and became a community specialist on Allure Domains Online. Been there for 5 years, working on a bunch of different titles, and moved on from there. So it's been a wild ride and quite not where I expected to be.
I got into this field completely on accident, but I think it shows kind of the power of having a background in science, if that's of any interest to you guys. I actually used to do work with dolphins. I used to be a biologist, so behavioral biologist. I have undergrad and graduate degrees in biology, and it's kind of rough. You know, it's hard to do that kind of research. It's a hard lifestyle. I got laid off, and I had always been interested in interdisciplinary kinds of projects with technology in biology. So I contacted the person who's now my boss, and she said, oh, hey, do you have statistics experience? And as a biologist, I did. So started like that with a game study that we had from the National Science Foundation to see how we could make games for older adults so it could help them with things like dementia. And I realized that I could apply my observational behavioral biology background to people. So now I call myself a psychologist, which feels very strange, but now I have a master's in psychology and I'm working on a PhD. So the field specifically is called human factor psychology. So if you have an interest in how people use technology, you ought to look into that. There's a dearth of professionals in this field right now, so people are getting snapped up right and left. It's a good field to go into. You do need to have a graduate degree, but yeah, it's totally accident, video games.
I probably took a more direct route into the field because my degree is computer game design, but I will say even having a degree, most of my background is completely programming, and I do complete community work now for Smite, but having the nerve to take a job that might not be what your degree states, like the receptionist job, like I don't think I'd be where I am today had I not done that first. Like I started modding games back in high school, and that's when I decided this is what I'm gonna do. I don't care how I get there. I'll dust floors if I have to. But yeah, I got in, and the job that I have now wasn't even listed on our website. It was internal at the time, so you just kind of have to find everybody you can, talk to everybody you can, go everywhere, do everything, be the person that stands out from the person who just does applications online and won't seek out other opportunities. And yeah, I just went to school and I did it that way.
Yeah, my path to Hi-Res was pretty forward as well. When I was in high school, I ended up going into university with an English degree because I thought that I wanted to write about video games. And I did that for a little bit, and I realized that it wasn't necessarily fit with me perfectly, and it was a lot of fun and great experience, but I discovered community management, and I was like, that is 100% more my calling. And so during college, I started a gaming fashion website called Console to Closet, and I did that for about 2.5, 3 years, and through that, I ended up making a lot of networks, and going to our Smite World Championship events, and networked and met a lot of people. So when they're hiring a community manager role, I applied and got it, which is awesome. And yeah, for me, it's always just been about networking and the people that you know.
For me, I went to school for graphic design and web development. Originally, I didn't realize that games were something that I could actually go into for my industry. So I did advertising for about 3 years after I graduated, and then I I make this joke a lot, but I basically wanted to get my soul back. So I quit the advertising industry, and I took on freelance work for software companies because I was trying to become a UI designer, like switch from web to more software-based things. And then I actually got laid off from that company. And during the layoff, it was during the recession, so I couldn't find a job for a very, 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 very long time. And I did a lot of soul searching, and I thought to myself, if we're gonna spend 60 plus hours working with people, I wanted to work with people who enjoyed me for my geekdom, because I'm into so many other fandoms and cosplay and all that kind of stuff, so I wanted to be able to have friends at work. And so I decided to go into video games, and I decided that UI design and art was the closest thing to what my skill set was, because I did some coding and whatnot. I made a brand for myself and really catered my portfolio, my physical portfolio, my online portfolio, my resume to trying to get myself into video games. I picked a few different companies that I really, really wanted to work for, which EA was one, and applied to the positions that I thought fit me. And lo and behold, one of them, I was one of the only people who applied, apparently, to be a UI artist, because there's a dearth of them as well. So I'm going to UI. I always have a job now. So I got hired by my first studio and have been in games for now about 5 years.
Every company has that UI needs a graphic designer.
Warren doesn't have that much reach. That's all right. So I got my start after I graduated from SCAD in 2011. That's right. Who's the SCADdies in the house? There's a lot of us around. I went to Floyd County to work, and I was there for about 5 years. And in my experience there, completely by accident too, that I ended up as a background artist there. So I worked on various projects, and eventually got promoted to lead a project of my own. So when it came to time that I decided that I really wanted to work in the video games industry, I was just I saw this listing on EA. I was I applied. I knew somebody who was there who used to work with me and went to school with me, and it was for a position that I really didn't think I was qualified for at all. No, it's fine. Because I was an animator, and I hadn't done any game work before in a big level, besides freelance projects. But I applied anyway, just to see. I was I have nothing to lose, so I might as well do it. And I ended up getting the job 2 months later, and I knew I was going to get it because everything was coming together in Atlanta, so I knew I had to leave. So yeah, since then it's been 7 months, and it's been working out really, really well.
How I got in, I'll tell a little bit about that too. I was a history major in college.
Hey!
Nice. And then after that, I really didn't know what to do with a history major, much less, it was ancient Greek history. I don't know. So there I was doing HIV/AIDS research, like you do. And then I was kind of feeling that crushing loneliness that you get in your early 20s after you're out of college, and the forced social interaction with people your age and your interests is gone. And so I turned to MySpace. Dating myself. And I found people who were playing video games, and they were talking about it, and there were groups. And I had played video games my entire life, starting when I got my little grubbies on my dad's Merlin gamepad. I don't know if you guys even know what that thing is. It's like a giant phone. And I started talking with them, and there was this company that did community support before it was all in-house. For MMOs, and they did marketing for video games, and they kept asking me questions on how to do marketing and PR, and I was like, dude, you guys need to hire me. And that's just what needs to happen. So they brought me in-house, and then they're like, I don't like the gaming media, we need to start a site. And so they're like, all right, great, you're the editor. Okay. Drinking from a fire hydrant, I'm sure you guys have all experienced that, because you wear 12 hats at a startup. And so we made The Escapist from that. So let's see. women in gaming. We've done this panel for, I think, this is the 4th year now. Yeah. So we keep coming back to it, and I'm kind of, I guess, do you ladies have any thoughts on things that have changed over the last year? Any new developments?
We should make the other end of the table answer that first.
Yes. I mean, we don't need to. Everybody doesn't need to answer every question. Just if you have something to say, great, jump in.
Do it, Allison. Do it.
So I've actually been on the panel every single year that this has started up. And I see Melody. Sorry, she's walking back there. She's the one that I think originally started this too. And I've noticed the community shifting to be a little bit more positive each year. Like everyone seems to be more aware of social issues, and it's not just like women in games. It could be women in tech or any STEM fields, or there seems to be a lot of vocal Twitter users that are out there too that are bringing attention to these issues, and they're starting to get more media attention just overall. So I think more people are becoming aware. Whether that means that they're actually changing their behaviors to make the things better, that hasn't quite aligned with the awareness yet. But at least now women, I feel, are able to talk more about these issues openly without fear of necessarily being doxxed or getting terrible threats to their persons and family.
I think one of the things I've noticed over the past year, perhaps slowly evolving, is the use of more heroines within the industry, and forward-facing heroines who aren't just sex objects, which has been used for eons at this point in the industry. But like the new reboot of Lara Croft, is one really good person to look at. I'm trying to think of a couple others, and like blanking right now, because sometimes I'm sitting there playing things and I'm like, oh, that's cool, I get really, really excited about it, and now I'm just like blanking because I'm in front of a room of all these people. No pressure at all. But I just think that's really exciting and positive to see that both men and women are getting equal treatment in taking that heroic role, especially also as a lead character and on the box cover, things like that. It's not so much of a stigma. And there has been that stigma in the past where, you put a woman on the cover of a box and people are like, well, are they going to play it? Are they going to like it? Well, maybe we should show her butt more. No, please don't do that.
From the academic landscape, I can say that I've seen a lot changing over the past 10 years. So I've been in this field for about 6 years, and just science in general for 10 years. There's a lot more women coming up through the ranks for games user research and games studies, which has been really exciting to see. Every time I go to a conference, there are a lot more women presenting papers, and if you are presenting a paper, that usually means that you're the lead author on that paper, so you're the first author. And that's been really exciting to see. It's really, well, I guess everything here is nerdy, but when you're in academia, you have people that they're always publishing papers and they're really in your interest field, and they're like your rock stars, they're like celebrities, but they're just professors. So all of my celebrity kind of professor publishing people are women, and they're writing about games, and they're doing games research and really great studies. And it was, I think just this year, I looked back and saw all these people that I want to kind of stalk when I'm at conferences. I'm so here and I'm kind of creeping around. They're kind of all women, and they're really powerful, smart researchers in this space, and they're producing lots of really great papers. So on that side, that's been a big change just in the past 10 years.
All right. So what are some of the unique challenges, do you think, that face women in these fields, and how have you ladies clearly successfully navigated some of those?
Well,
I like, by the way, that a community person is starting this because of community. I'm sure we all have stories.
well, even my biggest example of this was at school. When I started Southern Poly, I was really attracted to that university because it was small, and I'm from a small town, and it was like a safe haven because everybody was into what you were into. But ask the question again. I got a little nervous.
That's fine.
unique challenges, and what are some of the tactics you've taken to navigate through those?
So one of the biggest issues is just sitting there in class and you're surrounded by, seriously, starting in this degree, I was probably one of 4 people doing what I was doing. And being a girl, you're looked at more, I felt, because I feel like you have more to prove. So that was always a challenge. Like, you didn't want to be like the one girl in class and then have to go present your project and it not shine as bright as the other dudes in the class. So those challenges kept me up at night. I would stay up till 3 a.m. working on my code, making sure I put in extra levels, doing this, that, and the other, because I was like, I'm going to be the one that shines above the rest. And I noticed, like, as I got deeper into my degree, it got easier because I showed them, what I'm made of. Like, I didn't do this degree because I'm trying to prove something new. I'm doing it because I'm smart and I can. So you just have to really know what you're made of. And once you respect yourself, people will respect you. And I noticed as a senior, like, up on the stage graduating, like, I don't feel like I'm being looked at anymore. Like, I feel like I belong here. So that was really challenging starting out, having to beef up to all the other dudes.
I have a litany of things. So, a lot of them are microaggressions, and it's like, okay, so let's see, I will be in a meeting room with 12 other people. I'm the only female. So that happens a lot in the video game industry. Like, you are vastly outnumbered. And while that number is changing, you're still sometimes the only female voice in the room. And then you'll get the eye rolls from, oh God, she's bringing up the patriarchy again. And, I'm like, well, it's a thing. So number 2, boob physics. Let's talk about in Street Fighter 5, where second player Chun-Li's boobs kept flying. Like, okay, let's keep sexualizing women that way. That's great. Let's see, I can keep going. 3, this is actually a way more serious topic and really has impacted me deeply. I feel like sexual harassment is much more prevalent for females, especially females in very male-dominated fields. And it's personally happened to me. It has happened to most other females that I've ever met that work, especially working in the gaming industry, whether it's in the workplace or at a convention. And that's total bullshit that you're still having to face that just because we're the only female there. My first job, I basically needed to wear t-shirts and jeans because I got called out for looking too pretty, or I got called out for showing off too much skin. Like, if I wore a tank top that showed my bra straps, like, they told me I was being distracting. So that kind of stuff is very, very challenging. And now that I've gotten older and I give less shits, that's my tactic. And now I'm like, no, this is completely sexist. Like, I will call them out on their behavior. I had someone who was a peer ask me if I was dating one coworker or another coworker. And at the time, I was like, they're my friends. Like, I'm not dating either one of them, but you assume that because I'm a female, I'm dating someone? Like, thanks. Like, are you going around asking all the men this? And he was very taken aback that I was upset with him at that point. And then, like, 2 days later, he was like, oh, I talked to my wife, and she said I was really sexist.
But I have to give you props for that. That's amazing that he went and talked to his wife. Like, you opened the door for that conversation. So that's
I think that's a big thing.
awesome.
That's something that I've learned over time is not. I have a hard time being not reactive when something like that happens, because immediately think like, this person's a jerk. And it takes me a while to think, this person may not be a jerk. They might be just acting like a jerk. So if I call them out in a neutral way, like, what did you mean by this? Like, why would you think I am dating either of these people? Then usually the people kind of get that horror on their face of like, oh, I have said something. But it's hard, like getting talked over when you're the only woman in the room. If you're always getting interrupted, it's easy to think like all these people hate me because they're jerks. And then you realize like, well, maybe if I call someone out, like, hey, can I finish or something like that, then you see that horror on their face, like, ugh. But sometimes some people are just jerks. And you have to figure it out. And it's hard to know where that line is between being a good girl and being assertive.
Right. Yeah. And then of course if you go too far over the assertive line, they'll start calling you the B word, which I can't say that, so.
Yeah. Yeah, like a big part of my growth and both the animation and video game industry is just learning how to speak up for myself, because I'm a person who's very much used to kind of making people around me feel as comfortable as possible. And so when it comes time to have to call out people on their bullshit, you have to kind of, I have to stop and think to myself, it's like, okay, like how do I want to say this? How do I present this to to this person? But I've started to get better at it, especially as I've been getting older and been working longer. Because like as you said, you start giving less shits after you've dealt with enough of it. So I also find myself in meeting rooms with just I'm the only woman in the room, and so learning how to find my voice and learning when to speak up and how to speak up and how to present myself in those kinds of situations. I've been definitely learning a lot, especially now that I'm in a lead position and I'm the only woman in those lead meetings. So it's it's been really a growing and learning experience for me, definitely, especially because since I am a softer personality, I'm definitely coming out of my shell more and more. So yeah, it's been getting better.
I have a litany of things that I can say right now. Unlike Allison, you heard my rants too.
Yeah.
If you were here 2 years ago, I'm sorry, because you're here, maybe some of them again. But so I have a unique position on this because I'm not only a woman, but I'm a transgender woman. How many of you in this room have actually met a transgender person before today? Oh, good. That's shockingly good. That's really good. Because transgender people are a very small percentage of the population, which is really good to hear that almost everyone in this room has met one. Some of my friends up in Massachusetts have not. Some of my best friends have not until me. But being that in the video game industry and being a public figure, I'm an out transgender woman in a public position who represents million and up brand titles. For a while, there was in one of my companies, I won't say where, but out of love for them because they are really good people. But there was a consideration made as in, you work as a community, should you be a face of this game? And that was made because it wouldn't be known if putting me out front would cost the brand money, straight up, if people were ready for that. Eventually that decision was made, and I did become a public, face, which was great, and I think a lot of people were really happy. A lot of people in the audience really didn't throw crap, which is great, but some people do still, especially when you move into a more competitive space, which is where I am. Arcade is an extremely competitive title, and very frequently, some people are like, well, you just don't know the game, you suck. So you get someone like the woman, you're a woman, what do you know about gaming? I don't know, do you know what interactive vision is? What's that? It's one of the first video game systems ever made, you chump. Did you play an Atari 2600? I did. Do we want to go through the list of MMOs I've played? I can try that, and I've, more than just a casual gamer, I play every night, and I have for years. So don't start with me that I don't know what I'm talking about. And then, it can go from there. It sometimes gets under your skin after a while, especially when you're in front of thousands of people, and some of them are very, 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 very supportive, or some of them just don't care, that's the majority of people. But you do have the bad few who do come in, and sometimes they throw in chat #boy or girl, because they just don't want to see me, they don't want to deal with me, they don't want me to represent their game, even though I do represent their game, and I love their game. I want to support their game. So that is some of the outward facing issues that you can run into.
Yeah, I totally am on board with the whole, you have to prove your worth of, can you play this game? Do you know how to hold a controller? It's I've been doing this for 2 years now. But yeah, and same with, just the meetings, when it's, with 12 other dudes and it's you, and then they're like, so what do you think of the size of this bra? You're like, are you kidding me right now? But yeah, I think one of the biggest issues for me is I'm also very public facing, and I have to really be critical of what stuff I'm saying, and I can't be too reactive when people are commenting towards me of like, you know, I get those YouTube comments that are just terrible, and I want to so badly just write back something equally as terrible, and it takes a lot of willpower to be like, I'm an adult, I'm getting paid for this, I need to just don't feed the trolls, and you know, I have to be very careful about the words that I do use, and sometimes, yeah, sometimes it's fun to sass people on Twitter if they're being like super sexist, and yeah, it's just a matter of just, you know, being careful about it.
I'm not going to list anything. You guys have said a lot. Can you? So the tough thing is kind of you have to grow a thick skin, and before you get, I mean, it's like building a callus. You have to run a certain number of miles before that callus forms. Is there any kind of a tip or any kind of a encouraging word that you can share to some people who might be feeling a little downtrodden right now?
Look around, there's so many girls here. You've got so much support. There's lots of people online too, which has like been awesome. For me, anytime I've had really rough things I've had to deal with, sexism or sexual harassment or anything like that, I have a pretty good group of women that also work in tech that I can rely on and talk to, and that's been really helpful.
Yeah, that's kind of a gripe I have with some panels about women in blank, you know, because a lot of times it gets negative real fast, and then that's a whole hour of that. And there's a lot of really good things about having diverse teams and having women on teams and knowing who's on your team that is an ally to you. It's awesome. You can be the only woman in a team, but if you know who's around you that can support you and that you can go to, they don't have to be a woman. Like, there's really positive things there to bring other people up, particularly if they're more junior than you, to seek them out and identify them and not silo yourself, because a lot of times you have this kind of like, I don't want to use the word battered, but you know, like everybody's downtrodden, hiding in their offices, women that are having a rough time. If you just go and you make those connections and you bring this stuff out into the daylight, there's a lot of really positive stuff there.
Yeah, I definitely agree. There's been a lot of times, especially, you know, since moving, that I've been having a rough time, and you know, being able to find the people around you who are strong and who are willing to support you and who are willing to, you know, give you affirmations every day. You know, it's just like just recognizing who's around you and recognizing who's there, who's actually there for you. So you can't, you know, don't be afraid to, you know, put yourself out there a little bit and kind of like, you know, allow yourself to be vulnerable around people who you know you can trust. So I think that's really important to bring yourself back up from a dark place.
And I would say, I don't know if it's because of social conditioning or whatnot, but I often find that women have a harsher inner critic than a lot of other people might have. So don't listen to that critic quite so much. Make sure that, yeah, you reach out to your allies when you are doing that to yourself and get those positive words, because, I mean, you need to change your pathways, your distorted thinking, into thinking more positive thoughts about yourself. And that's been one of the greatest things that I've started doing for myself, is just making sure that I compliment. And I'm like, hey, Elder Allison, you're looking great today. Thanks, Allison. Not like that. That's not great. But you get what I'm saying. Like, the more this is really hippie-ish now. The more positive like messaging that you're surrounding yourself with, the less that inner critic's going to come out.
It's true, though. It's just straight up true. It sounds hippie-ish, but it's just, it means a world of things to like sometimes be on the other end of a really bad situation, you know, and all of a sudden you look into your private message box and there is someone, a fan, who drew a image of you and your producer's line art, and he said, thank you for everything you do, we love you. Especially after not sleeping for like the last 48 hours. But if you really want to be in the industry and you really have a passion, or you love games or just anything, I mean, everyone in this room, do you love games? Actually, bored. Do you love games? That's what I expect from you. If that's true, then do it. You know, do what you love. Jump out there. Don't try and let other people hold you back or hold you down. And even when you're in a team situation, sometimes you bring things up and people won't listen maybe the first, second, third time. And I think everyone in this room has been in those situations where things can come up and everyone's like, I don't really have time for that right now. These are the priorities, but maybe, one day it will become a priority. I've seen that happen multiple times. But also, it's good that it gets out there because it gets people thinking. And it starts bringing those minds around and it starts changing the conversation. So it's good to bring these type of things up in the first place.
Yes, going and doing it is really the big tip that you will hear from anybody who's in the industry. If you ask them, how do you get in? Go make a game.
It's the Shia LaBeouf prophecy. What should we do? Just do it.
Yeah, just do it. I think that's actually the standing up and yelling, that's actually good, because it's not just go do it. And I think a lot of times women are kind of like, yeah, I'm gonna go do it. Because we're not super confident a lot of times. We aren't just taking charge, jumping in, but I'm gonna go Star Trek for a second. Don't just go, boldly go. Be confident. This morning, I don't know if any of you guys went to the How to Be Successful opening keynote with panelists from BioWare and Epic Games. Anyway, I guess not. But one of their things was ask for a ton of money. Just be bold, be like, I own this, y'all. I'm gonna do this. And that's something that I think women don't do very well, because sometimes people are like, oh, look at that. When we do that, and it's you can't listen to that. That's bullshit. You gotta go out there and get what you want. Boldly go. All right, you guys have any questions? I'm gonna come down there and...
I can be loud.
Rafe is very loud.
Yeah.
I can be loud. This is sort of a meta question for primarily the developers on the panel. As there's more presence of women in the development teams, have you noticed that improving the quality of not just the women characters, but the men characters? Has that had any carryover into something other than dudes who look like me shooting things?
I would say yes. It does seem to be influencing both male protagonists and female protagonists. I start to see male developers ask more dimensional questions like, would a female actually do this, or would a male do this? Is this kind of personality trait actually more feminine or masculine? Should we not actually plaster everything in pink? Because my understanding was that was a girl's color, but maybe I'm wrong. We're starting to see some of those questions come up. And so I feel like they're starting to flesh out characters just a little bit more anyway. And they're thinking like, well, does it need to be a white guy that looks like, Nathan Drake every single time? He's got the 5 o'clock shadow and the brown hair that's straight up like, it doesn't need to look like that. Those conversations are happening a whole lot more because of it.
I can cite an example of something that just happened recently with our team. Now I'm on the publishing side of the house, so we don't make ArcAge, for example. We publish it, and that means another company, XL Games out in Korea, does make ArcAge. But we were putting together the marketing campaign for one of our new updates, Ascension, and in the game, as part of Ascension, one of the big things was you can now found a nation within the game, and you can become a king, which is really, really cool. And in all the documents, this is referred to as king, and we even internally referred to it as king. And then we were putting together the marketing campaign, and we were all sitting down trying to think of what we wanted to do. And so it was like, why does it have to be a king? And we all were like, yeah, why does it have to be like that? Because you always think like that, it's sovereign. So all of a sudden, our language for it internally started becoming sovereign instead. And now it's the sovereign system. And in the main key art, which is really, really badass, by the way, it is a wyvern, because the sovereign can eventually get a rideable wyvern dragon, which is super awesome. It's the only one on the server. It's really hard to get. No one's gotten it yet, and the system's been out for months. To put that in perspective, with a game where you can have hundreds of people working towards the same objective. No one's found this objective because it's that hard to get to. But it's actually a queen riding the dragon, and not a man. And that was really, really awesome to have.
Hello, my name is Faith. I'm gonna try not to get too wordy with this because I blog and podcast a lot about this topic. So I'll try. First off, as a transgender woman myself, I am so happy to see you up there. That means a lot to me. The question I want to ask is, women in gaming, as far as characters in the game, are sort of having that same glass ceiling shattering renaissance that we've seen in other aspects, but my point is, every time one of those ceilings is shattered, it seems to only be the cis white women that get to go through first, and then everyone else kind of trickles along. Like, everybody's saying, near 100 years since women got the right to vote, Hillary Clinton might be president. It's like, no, every 100 years since white women got the right to vote, Hillary Clinton might be president. So with the knowledge that we have now, with this new frontier coming in, what do you all see as the way we can make sure that everyone gets to cross that line at the same time, and not you all can sort of catch up later with women of color, trans women, minority groups?
It's a really good question.
It's a unique challenge to me because a lot of it has to depend on actually getting these people in the industry in the first place. And I know, speaking from my own experience as a woman of color, I am the only black woman who works at EA in Austin, and it's crazy to me to see that that representation isn't there yet. And I'm proud to actually have that part of it. But it's definitely, I feel like a lot of people don't feel like they have a place in the industry still, and they don't have that confidence to kind of go and go for it. So I think that it's trying to kind of empowering our community to get in the industry, because once we're in there, we can actually start to influence decisions that of what we produce, and actually create these characters that all have a seat at the table essentially.
I've also always felt that one of my favorite things of games is character creators, and I think games that have that element to them usually have a lot more diversity in their marketing and in their development as well, because everyone in marketing's like, I want to show how diverse this character creation system is. So they actually do a good thing, and they start making very diverse looking characters that usually line up in the front of the row, which I think that's cool. I want to see more of that. So maybe that's also part of something that people can make more use of.
The incubators that are making the people that go into these different fields that have influence about these different games, like universities, I can say Georgia Tech has some really amazing programs for training employees and staff for safe spaces, and for just how to incorporate lots of different kinds of team members and allow their voices to be heard, which I think is really awesome, particularly for a place like Georgia Tech, which is not known for being very friendly, I think, as an engineering school. So even our office, I don't know if Amy, our artist, is in here, but she's had the training, and we even have a sign on our door that it's a safe space for people specifically to come into without having any issues. So on the university side, at least, if people are coming to the university, hopefully we can pump out more diverse, accepting, knowledgeable people to go into these industries.
I'll add on to that the more vocal you can be about you wanting those types of games also helps we developers sell that to execs. Because sometimes, like, the top of the food chain may not understand that diverse games will actually sell. Like, they still have this old stigma that they won't. So sometimes it's just really hard to get them to buy into your concept or your feature. Like, one thing that a friend of mine and I always say is to try and, if you have a custom creation character thing, to allow people to choose their own pronouns. That can make such a huge difference in someone's gameplay experience, but yet we don't actually utilize that too much. So that's a particular thing that it's really hard to sell up, because once they realize what you're doing, they're like, oh no, but male, female, there's only two, or they can't have a mixture of that. It's very much binary. So like the more vocal that everyone can be, not just the people who are in those minorities that need to be represented, but like everyone, just vocalize it, and then hopefully like our marketing groups will pick up that there is a need for it, and we can break these stigmas that they won't make any money.
Yeah, and piggybacking off of that, like it's not always a conscious decision, like we're specifically just not going to do this thing. It's alarming sometimes just that like when we're sitting in the meetings at work, just in the studio, if you don't mention these things, like people don't consider them all the time. Like when we have a God release and we think, well, maybe it should look more like this or do this because of that, they're like, oh, well, I didn't think of that. And as community managers, we look at all of those channels. So the more vocal you can be, I guarantee you the things that are on the top of our development list most of the time are always top in our community threads and the forums on Reddit. And you just have to put it out there, because if it's out there, it'll be seen. The conversation just needs to keep happening.
We really don't ignore you. We really don't ignore you. I know sometimes it's like, I'm just tweeting out in the middle of nowhere and no one's listening to me. No, we really read all that. In fact, my watch is set up. It's actually sending me all the tweets that we're getting right now still. So.
Everyone tweeted Sarah! I think also, like, just kind of also building off that, money talks. So if you see something that really does represent you, that you really do like, support it with all of your heart and all your money. And if there's stuff that you're kind of like, I know, like, do I really want to play the next Call of Duty game? Maybe I'll wait until they actually have like female soldiers or whatever in it. Like, you can kind of be a little more critical, because that is what the executives are going to make their decisions based on, unfortunately.
I got really angry at a certain game for a while because they didn't put in a character I really wanted. And I said I would never play that game until they put in that character. Even though I played it in the past, I loved it. It's a great game. I really recommend it. You might have heard of it. It's called Smite. I complained until Nox was added, and then Nox got added. So, yay, Nox!
So, since we're already on the topic of Smite, I was wondering, there's kind of an ongoing debate in the community about the levels of sexualization of the goddesses, not only on the design, but also on particularly some idol poses, some taunts. Does that debate happen internally often? How do you react to that from a community standpoint?
It's Hi-Res Studios is a very large company, and as most tech companies, there's a pretty small amount of women. So even just in the last year, the amount of women that have been invited to those meetings that they can actually speak up and kind of fight back, I guess, against the sexualization of those characters has increased so much. Me and Savannah, we're annoying everyone in that company, just like, all right, you guys, well, let's see those lines for that.
Even super recently, we just sent card art that was a little too questionable for somebody, and we're like, you gotta redo this, lift up that shirt and lower that skirt over there. All right, now we'll send it out. It happens, and we notice.
But the nice thing is, especially the community team that we work on, we have a lot of control, which usually doesn't happen, which is awesome. And there's 4 of us, and we are pretty evenly split. We have 2 girls, 2 guys, and we try to be as vocal as possible. So it's really just, we're fighting the fight.
Should we blame Pump on that?
Always. Always. Yes.
Hi. Sorry. You were saying earlier, as a consumer, to basically use your money to support, games and companies that you really like. And I guess this is kind of a simple question, but do you have any games or companies that you would really recommend that we support because they're more female-led, female-centric, and things like that? Because I just find on my end as a consumer, I'm like, these all look awesome, but I don't know which one would be best for me to sort of support in that way. So.
One of my favorite companies to support is BioWare.
Yeah. I do support them because they make great stuff, I'm just saying. Just BioWare. Okay, it's good to know. We'll just do that for us forever.
They do a great job of representation, and even just their studio. I don't know everyone there, but it seems to be a really great, diverse group of people.
Thank you.
It is.
I know a lot of people personally, and they're fantastic. They're always asking the really hard questions of each other. They've tried very hard to listen to the fans and give as much representation as they can and fit into the narrative. I'm also going to just say, just because I actually got a text from her today. So Amy Hennig is one of my favorite people in the video game industry. She was the creative director of Uncharted. So she actually wrote all of Uncharted 1, 2, and 3, and now she's working at EA on an amazing Star Wars action adventure game. So like, so those sorts of games, like looking especially for women-led ones, is really, really important. And she's amazing. Everyone should look at her stuff.
So this is a slightly more specific UI UX question.
Ooh, yes.
But yeah, do you find, now I'm asking this for my friend who isn't here because they would want to ask this, but they're having an issue currently getting into the industry because a lot of companies are mistaking UI UX for designers and not researchers. And do you experience that issue, and what would you recommend to them to kind of do to be able to actually work in the field with what they study?
Okay, this is very specific. The games industry still does not know what UI UX is. I will say that. If you go to any website, like some of them will list it as UX researcher, or they will call it UX designer, but they mean UX researcher. And then, then other times it'll actually be design oriented, and they'll want you to be able to have like the graphic design background that I have. So it really depends on what your friend wants to do. If she, he, what pronoun should I use? They?
Yeah.
We'll go with they. If they want to go into research, then they should really push for that, because there are groups being spun up at the larger game studios that are just solely for UX research.
This too, because there's a continuum in this field, and there's lots of different names for these things, and they get interchanged, and there's confusion about what all this means. So there's HCI is another field that your friend could look into, so human-computer interactions. So my field is part HCI, but from a psychology standpoint. So there's HCI, then human factor psychology, also known as engineering psychology, also known as applied cognitive psychology. All these names, it's absolutely ridiculous. But on that side of the field, doing usability, playtesting, I mean, that's mainly what I do, interviews, focus groups, running people through games. In industry, coming out with a master's, you start at 6 figures, and there are not enough people in this field. I don't know if this is actually hurting my chances of getting jobs in industry, but I would go into this. But if you're interested in UX, UI, just basically anything that happens when you put a piece of technology in front of a person, those types of programs, particularly Georgia Tech's, are excellent.
Oh, and then, sorry, sometimes when you're on a small team, you end up doing both. Like I am a designer, but I've run usability tests and focus groups and interviews and whatnot. So
just be able to do everything. And just tell them that. And then you learn it on the way, and you're like, yeah, I can do that.
Hey, so I think it was the first question was about, like, how do you feel that it's gotten better? And you guys unanimously said yes, which made me feel fantastic. But, at least from my perspective, 2016 has been the year when, for example, Miley Yiannopoulos started touring in the United States. And, shall we say, certain political movements seem to have fomented and perhaps pushed back the discussion. What do you think of that? Have you seen that? Or is it really just, it really is getting better and we gotta keep pushing through?
I think it really is getting better, to be honest, in many, many ways. And that exists, and absolutely you can nod to it, but it's such a small group of people that it really, you can sit there and give it this giant spotlight, but it's just not worth it. It's just so small. There's so many other people who are just being so cool about it.
I think it's getting better, particularly in the way now that it's not okay to be the bad guy anymore, and people are better about calling people out on that. So it's not like an unspoken about thing. People are totally fine with throwing it back in somebody's face, and it's not acceptable.
Some of the biggest people in my community who are so good at pushing back on the type of behavior is my own community. It's not moderators. It's not someone standing in the wings with a camera. It's people who are sitting down and dude, really? Why are we talking about this again? Like, we don't care. We just want to play a game.
Yeah.
That's what it really is.
Hi, my name's Kevin, and I'm a UI scripter over at EA in Orlando.
What?
Yeah. My contract was just extended, so I'm super excited. I was wondering, it's Allison, right?
Yes.
If you specifically had any advice or subject matter that you draw from that would help improve user interface that I might be able to improve.
Are you asking me what's bad UI? Because I could talk about that.
All day.
Let's see. There's not actually a lot of good UI because it's kind of a new field, and a lot of the research has just now started to be done on games. Like beforehand, it was more like ATM. I was about to say ATM machines. That's redundant. ATMs or like
Plane cockpits.
yeah, plane like simulations. So right now, there's not a lot of research for us to pull on. Looking at, let's see, I get a lot of inspiration from Pinterest. I get a lot of inspiration from mobile apps. Well, because I'm a graphic designer, I like to look at what advertising is doing and seeing how they're trying to communicate visually to people, and trying to figure out how maybe I can transfer that into the design world and in games. Smashing Magazine's always really good. UX Myth's website is really good. I could keep on going. Playing a lot of games and just listing what works and what doesn't work is also just a really great way to have your own research, so that you can always go back and look at it. Because some people have solved a lot of the problems that you're trying to solve, and some people have done it really well already. And if there are already these mental patterns that users have for for interacting with something, then it's good to kind of start mimicking that more and more so that people will intuitively understand your game.
We have time for one more question.
You two, duel to the death. Go.
Okay. As a player, I know there has been a very specific moment that for me, I looked at a game I was playing, and I saw myself, and I saw women in power doing things that I grew up playing games. The first game that I was really obsessed with was Halo, and there's pretty much all men. And the game that I really saw this in was Dragon Age Inquisition. The moment when it's Leliana and Cassandra, and your Inquisitor, who I of course played a female character, and they're all standing there, and it's women. Women are at the head of the world, about to change the world, make these huge decisions. For each of you can answer this. I don't know. All of you, I don't know, whatever. Was there the moment when you were like, here it is. Women are in video games. Women are doing the powerful things in these video games.
I have played Fable since the first one came out, and when they introduced the third one, it's not the fan favorite, but you could be the princess in that one, and it was cool because you were still the hero. They didn't make you this petite little figure that was week or whatever. No, I was bigger than my husband because he didn't go fight monsters every day. And I was like, yeah, I can do this. So that was my moment. I was just like, yeah, Elliot, you stay at home. Let me go take care of it.
My game, Beyond Good and Evil, it's an old game. I love Jade. When I saw that, I'm like, man, she's nurturing. She's a badass. She's got a stick that she just, and she's got a camera, and she just goes around and takes pictures of animals, and she can fix stuff. And I thought she was amazing. She's got green lipstick. She just does whatever she wants.
Renegade Friendship. You just can't that scene when it's her and the Krogan and they're trying to argue and you have a pistol. And then it's like, do you want to be a renegade in this moment? Because this guy's being a real dirtbag. And you're like, yeah. And she's just like, yeah, I don't care. Shoots that giant exploding barrel. Oh, it's so good.
Actually, mine's Mass Effect 2. I always played video games my whole life, and I know I loved it, but I never loved it. And then I played Mass Effect, and I was like, I need to work for video games. I need an Xbox. I need to just keep doing this. This is great. And it completely changed my life. I'm gonna say Mass Effect. It wasn't a game that made me want to go into the games industry, but it was the one I had just started my first games job, and I was playing through Mass Effect, and I was FemShep, and she just kept going through every single thing, and it wasn't about her sexuality. It's not like she was playing this strong female, who's overcompensating by being brutish to all the men. It wasn't like that, and I felt a really deep connection with her because I was going through a dark time as well, and she helped me just get through everything, just keep on fighting, keep on going. So it was that moment when I was like, women are in games. They're in games. And this is a thing, and it's going to be a thing forever now.
It sucks because I was also going to say Dragon Age Inquisition. Basically BioWare fans, because generally, just being able to see that you can, there's certain characters who have, their, distinct different sexualities, their characters, with a whole unique point of view. You can be, kind of whatever Inquisitor you want. I can make a character that looks like me. It's very exciting. It's just there's a lot of things that, that game has done right, and it made me feel really empowered, to want to keep playing it. So, yeah, Dragon Age Inquisition is actually
honorable mention. I think we've tossed an honorable mention to World of Warcraft for Jaina Proudmoore and who's the queen of the Forsaken? I forget her name right now. Sylvanas, thank you. Lady Sylvanas Windrunner, thank you. Yeah, both awesome characters. And Carrier as well. And then very rarely does anyone bring this up, but in Lord of the Rings Online, in the first book, there was a really awesome female character, Amarthea, and she's actually the villain of the first book. And she is, when you find out why she does it, it was heart-wrenching.
I had a moment. It wasn't quite so women have arrived in video games, but it was like, oh my god, Metroid. All right, we are out of time. Thanks, you guys have been lovely.